How's it going, everybody? Sam Callahan of Callahan Training Group here, back to do another episode of the CTG podcast. So this week I wanted to talk about CrossFit and the performance shooting crossover. Now, when people hear CrossFit, when people hear shooting, especially performance shooting, it elicits a lot of emotions, a lot of arguments that, in my opinion, are pretty silly because we're all speaking the same language, just we're climbing the hill from different sides. So I'm not going to sit here and talk about workouts you should go do CrossFit. I'm not talking about that kind of similar thing. I want to just talk about how I view shooting efficiently as a sport like any other sport. How I view it as a kind of bodybuilding for your skill set of shooting, right? So I don't really view performance side of shooting. We'll call it the hit factor, the practical shooting side, whatever you want to call it. I don't view it as anything other than a sport of efficiency. I look at it as Guncraft. It's just the word I use to reference the fact that I'm just worried about using this tool in my hand more efficiently. I don't care if it's a pistol or a rifle or a combination of them, but I'm going to use them efficiently and I'm going to use them in random combinations, meaning classifiers, stages, 6 or 7 different stages in a day if I'm shooting a match, right? You're going to randomize your training and you're going to do that kind of like how you would a sport. You can't prepare for what the opponent's going to do, but you could prepare for the couple of things they might do. You don't know exactly their plays, but you know how to prepare for anything that might be thrown at you. So I look at this as the same way. Same thing in fitness. CrossFit, we kind of look at as a general preparedness sport. You want to be generally prepared for anything, be able to move weight, be able to run, whatever, everything and anything. So I view shooting as kind of the same thing, at least performance shooting, right? I want to be able to shoot fast and close. I want to be able to shoot accurately, even though things are at distance. I want to be able to do any combination or any throttle control therein, right? So I want to talk about I want to talk CrossFit terminology real quick, just so if you're not a CrossFit person, you can follow along just a little bit more educated, from a more educated stance. The definition of CrossFit is simply highly functional movements, constantly varied, done at high intensity. Now it's a little bit wordier than that, but that's the gist of it. Highly functional, constantly varied, done at high intensity. That's it. So if you pick up a 10-pound ball and go for a jog around your block, that's CrossFit. You don't need to think of it as the guys on ESPN, and I don't think of it as the guys on ESPN. I think of it as the gym down the block. So think about it like this: functional, highly functional movements. You're only going to prepare for the things that you might face, right? Highly functional, think Steve Anderson's dry fire book. He has identified the 12 or so necessary skills that you're going to need to master to become a GM. Draw the gun from multiple positions, right? Be able to transition, be able to call shots, be able to stuff that gun full of bullets again, right? Whatever it is, there is a group of highly functional things that you can identify that any shooter will use, right? If you go down some more specific paths, obviously some like sports shooters are going to be obsessed with really fast reloads. If you shoot bullseye, sure, you might be obsessed with accurate a little bit more, but we're all going to train generally the same functional traits as in grip, stance, draw, follow-up shots, transitions. There's things out there. Now, the next thing, constantly varied. I think of that as training for classifiers, training on stages, shooting Dry Fire King videos on YouTube. It's constantly varied, not in my control, but it consists of those highly functional movements. So I have to be able to pull those highly functional movements from a subconscious database and utilize them in this random challenge. So that's what CrossFit is. I showed up this morning and there's 6 movements on the board and I was like, all right, I think I could do all these and let me just go for it, right? If I didn't have one of those highly functional movements subconsciously mastered, then I would have to work on that to then use it in a functional sense, right? So highly functional, constantly varied, done at high intensity is the next point of comparison of why I like to directly compare CrossFit to shooting. And this is the last time I'll really mention the CrossFit side of things, but done at high intensity. In CrossFit, we have time modalities or whatever. We might have a time cap. You might have a pyramid of weights and the top weight is the highest weight and you need to try to get there, right? In the shooting sports, I akin that to hit factor. You're always looking to increase your hit factor. You're always looking to work out as hard as you can, still not hurt yourself and do it with good form. Just like you're trying to shoot acceptably all the time. You're trying to shoot accountably all the time. So hit factor is your highly function, or I'm sorry, hit factor is your high intensity. That's where you could focus on your intensity. How intense should I be? Should I go so fast that my hits get worse? I don't know. Ask hit factor. So fitness and shooting, or at least CrossFit in this particular instance, CrossFit and shooting have this similar space in my brain where all I'm trying to do is be ready for anything in any combination, and whatever you throw at me, I can do my best and do. Now, the reason I like to talk about CrossFit is because I also teach similarly to how CrossFit is taught as far as the shooting side goes. When you show up to a CrossFit gym, you show up for the day, there is a workout on the board that has an intended stimulus. You are going to do this random, highly functioned, constantly varied, high intensity workout that includes a stimulus that say, we're going to do, say, core and legs today, right? It's going to be a bunch of random things that focus on core and legs. Well, that means your highest end athlete can just read what's on the board and do it. That also means any level of athlete along the way can scale that workout and get the same stimulus. So that's how I view how I teach. Say, I will set up, for example, El Presidente. And if you're a grandmaster, your standards for El Presidente are different than if you're a C-class shooter. But you're shooting the same workout with the same stimulus, and we can adjust it per you. We could see where your low-hanging fruit is. We could actually see what's the best and worst thing for you using benchmarks and metrics and things like that, right? So you have a stimulus that you show up for. You're going to do your best effort in that stimulus, period. Boom. So now we're not talking about anything other than Guncraft. We're just saying, hey, I'm going to show up and I'm going to use this tool more effectively, more efficiently in this course of fire, and I'm going to hold myself to benchmarks. Boom, easy. So all these skills kind of have a similar skill set, right? Or I'm sorry, all these drills have a similar skill set, but you're going to adjust it for your skill level, and you're going to keep yourself accountable to the high intensity hit factor that you can keep yourself accountable for. So boom, then I like to say the benchmarks in CrossFit, like, hey, who's done the best Fran time? That's a workout. Like, it's called Fran. You just go out and you can Google who's got the best Fran time. That's like a high hit factor in a classifier. Well, that's the world's best. And if I want to be a GM, sure, I'll compare myself to that. But if I'm not a grandmaster, I'm not ever trying to be a grandmaster, and I just want to hold myself to a good version of that, then I'll try to just be a B-class shooter, C-class shooter, maybe an A-class shooter, whatever I want to adjust for my goals, right? So that's the same thing in fitness, right? I'm not ever going to expect to beat the world record mile time, but I want to be the top 90% fittest in the world, and I'm going to try to hold myself to 90% of the world benchmark. Boom. So JJ Racaza is my 100% that I chase, right? Like guys like that out there, the 100%, that's like, okay, that's what's capable, that's what's possible. I'm going to try to hold myself to that realm of possibility, right? So the way I then look at like fitness and shooting kind of further on, it's all about keeping things simple and effective. Simple and effective. You don't need to do complicated stuff. The guys who are successful in fitness aren't inventing new things and doing new things. They're using what's out there and pushing the limits of it, right? They're using focus and repetition to get stronger, because we know these movements, these drills, right? This curl is efficient to get my arm stronger. This drill is efficient to get my transition stronger, right? So we're not going to try to reinvent the wheel. We're going to do focus, quality work inside of this efficient movement, and we're going to keep holding our benchmarks, and we're going to think, I'm going to keep pushing and pushing and pushing every day a little bit. Frequency over volume. So I mentioned that in my last video. It comes up here again. Frequency over volume. There's not a bodybuilder out there that goes twice a week to the gym and tries to work out for 4 hours. So your dry fire and your live fire shouldn't be like that. You shouldn't try to dry fire for an hour and a half a day, twice a week, and just kind of cram it all in once. That's not how quality is built. Now, it's better than not going to the gym. So if you're not going to the gym or doing that, do that. So if you're not dry firing or dry firing twice a week, dry fire twice a week. But I'd rather you think, how does a fitness guy, a fitness focused person get more fit every day? They do it every day. They do something every day, a little something every day. Pick a skill, pick something small. Today I went to the gym and hey, it happened to be an endurance and a little bit of leg workout. Cool. That's what we're doing today. All right. Was it great? Yeah, it was okay. Did I get a little bit better today? Totally. Tomorrow I'll focus on something different, right? So boom, there you go. So I'm going to just go tomorrow to try to get a little bit better, rather than try to stay at the gym today for 4.5 hours and then be too tired to do it tomorrow. not want to do it tomorrow, et cetera, right? So I view some of the big lifts out there, we'll call it like squat and bench press and deadlift. Those are our simple skill sets, right? Those are our simple skill sets, like just being able to draw the gun, being able to transition the gun, things like that. You're going to work on them forever. Now, I like working on Olympic lifting personally, things like cleaning jerks, things like snatches, because it's kind of a combination of all those little fitness things. I like to view the Olympic lifting like classifier training. If I want to get better at cleans, if I want to get better at snatches, I don't just bang my head against the wall trying to snatch. I do all the little individual movements therein, and then I try to put it all together at the end of the day. So that's how I work on classifiers. I like to run a classifier and see where my benchmark's at. And then I'm not going to sit there and spit bullets at a classifier for the next hour. What I would typically do is check out classifier, break it down into, okay, what does El Presidente consist of? Well, first of all, consists of a wrist up, turn and draw. So I can focus on just that skill set. Get it down, get consistent, get confident at it. What's the next thing? Well, follow-up shots, doubles, transitions, reload, repeat. All right, so if I break it into these little chunks, and then at the end of the day, I just shake it off, relax, stand by, hit the beep, and I put it all together, you'll get a better sense of exactly where I'm at, and you'll get better in a more efficient manner, because that's how we learn. We learn in segments like that. You don't learn very efficiently by trying to do 12 things all at once and try to juggle everything. Manage one ball at a time and then keep them all in play, right? So it ends up being a fun way to view this. You could never Olympic lift, just like you could never do classifiers in USPSA training, but it's just a good test of, do I have X, Y, and Z skills all together? A clean is kind of like a deadlift and then a squat and then into an overhead press. So it's kind of like what I'm saying. Can you do a draw, then a transition, then a reload, then a transition? Yeah, cool. I think it's all something you should try, something you should benchmark, something you should be accountable for. So that's kind of the last thing that I like to talk about culturally, why these things are very similar, not just CrossFit, but fitness in general. The shooting world has this weird crossover of this accountability and self-reliance, right? You're accountable to you. You're accountable to keeping pushing and doing the correct movements and making sure that you're hitting the movement standards and you're not doing it with bad form or you're not rushing anything. You're learning, you're getting a little bit better along the way. So there's this attitude of self-reliance and accountability that it's up to you to do the workout, you to keep doing it consistently, you show up every day. I could give you a whole fitness journal of how to become the world's greatest fitness person shooter. You don't put in the effort, if you don't have some accountability and take some responsibility to step up and do it, you'll never get there, right? So that's the first thing that I see culturally. The fitness world is very similar to. Now, similarly, it's intimidating to get into the fitness world. I was a fat kid. I used to be 100 pounds heavier than I stand. And the first time I went into the gym, it was intimidating. When I started going to try to go lift for the first time, it's intimidating. And the ironic thing is the biggest guy in the gym ended up being the friendliest dude to help me out because he's the most experienced. Well, what do you know? When you start showing up to matches, there's a lot of guys who are master, grandmaster shooters that'll very happily be like, hey, brother, why don't you just try this out? You want to try my gear? You want to try this holster? It seems intimidating to show up to USPSA. It seems intimidating to show up to any performance shooting or any tactical games or whatever you want to talk about, but everybody there wants you to be there. I've done a couple of other niche sports out there. Like I used to fly kites, like 4-string kites. I used to race snowboards. Like I used to do other niche sports, bicycles, dirt bikes. Those people aren't friendly like we're friendly. If they see a back tire loose before a race, they don't care. They're going to let you go out with that back tire crash that'll beat you. Meanwhile, the shooting community, I'll borrow you my competitive gear to finish because I want you to do your best today. It looks intimidating from the outside, but the shooting community is actually like very welcoming, very warm. They want people, they want training, they want you, they want your loved ones, and they want everyone involved because that's how we get stronger and that's how we grow. And generally speaking, going back to the last point, we're self-reliant and we're accountable. So we want other people who think similarly. We want to grow the community. But really, the last thing that I like to talk about in all this is the attitude from a successful athlete in general. I don't care what kind of athlete, bodybuilder, CrossFit, cyclist, I don't care if you play pickleball. It's a better than yesterday attitude. It's a little bit better every single day. It becomes a lifestyle. I'm going to choose to add this piece of fitness to my lifestyle. It's not a diet. It's not a quick fix. It's a change in my attitude. It's a change in how I work. And I'm going to use this skill set a little bit every single day. And I'm just going to try to be better than yesterday, better than yesterday, better than yesterday. Better than yesterday used to be one of my favorite gym quotes ever, going back to Donna, the lady who owned my previous gym. That was one of her big things, better than yesterday. She's an athlete who's been an athlete for twice as long as anybody else and is still out there crushing it. So I look to people like that for guidance. And then I talked to some other guys in the fitness world and then the knife world and the combatives world. And Tuhan Tom Kyer has a fun video and a fun saying out there, the kill your clone mentality, that every day at midnight, you're going to meet a clone of yourself from 24 hours previously. Did you get better in these last 24 hours that you could beat him right now? And you should use that as motivation every day. Can I outshoot myself 24 hours ago? Can I get just a percentage better, a percentage stronger, a percentage faster, a percentage smarter? Can I learn something? Can I add something to my toolbox, to my Rolodex that makes me a more valuable person today than yesterday? And that just becomes a lifestyle. Whether it's fitness or shooting, I wake up every day and I think about how can I get a little bit better today than yesterday? How can I make myself a little bit harder to kill? How can I make myself a little bit more reliable for my family? How can I make myself more reliable for myself? Right? So that kind of concludes my little crossover here. I had this weird thought this morning. I was talking to a CrossFit coach in my gym who was talking about, hey, I'm a Marine. I used to shoot a very long time ago. Could you get me up to speed again? And we started chatting it up and I realized, man, I teach exactly the same way. CrossFit and guns are the same way for me. The application is the only difference, right? So I view all of this as Guncraft. I view it as fitness, as just bodycraft. I'm just trying to be efficient. I'm trying to be better every day. I'm trying to hold myself to world benchmarks and try to just get a little bit better, a little bit better. So thanks for listening. I hope you guys liked this weird episode here. It's a little look into my brain because this is two things that are very close to my heart. So if you want to hear any topics specifically, reach on out. If you have any questions, reach on out. Happy springtime. The sun's out. You can kind of tell behind me there. So it's personal training, private training, and classes are back on at the range. The snow is melted and we got 50 and 60-degree days out there again. So here we go. 2024 season is launching. Have a great one. Keep dry firing.